The lights in the Lenox Hill Hospital birthing suite glowed sterile white, cold enough to make even the air feel expensive. Outside, Manhattan buzzed beneath a silver storm. Inside, Lily Hale Maddox lay half-conscious, her breaths shallow under the hum of the oxygen machine. Sweat slicked her temples, but the pain wasn't what terrified her, it was the sound of the door unlocking. Cole Maddox, her husband, the CEO of Maddox Systems, a billion-dollar software empire, stepped in wearing his tuxedo from a charity gala. The smell of Dior Sauvage and champagne trailed him. His Mont Blanc pen glimmered in his breast pocket. He didn't look like a man about to welcome a child. He looked like a man closing a deal. "Sign it, Lily," he said, placing a stack of documents on the tray table. His voice was ice wrapped in silk. The updated power of attorney, just business cleanup before the baby. Her voice trembled. "Cole, not now." He smiled without warmth. "It's precisely now. You'll thank me later." She tried to turn away, clutching her belly as another contraction hit. The monitor beeped faster. Cole leaned over, his face inches from hers. "Do you even realize how much I've done for you? For your family? I built an empire while you painted nursery walls." The pain flared. Lily gasped for air, her cannula slipping slightly. She tried to adjust it, but her hand shook too much. Cole grabbed it instead. "Don't dramatize this," he muttered. "Just sign." "I can't breathe," she whispered. Cole's patience snapped. He yanked the oxygen tube from her nose, furious. "Then maybe this will make you listen." The monitor screamed. Her chest tightened. Her world blurred to snow. The alarms drew Dr. Ava Coleman and Nurse Jordan Pike sprinting into the room. "Step back, sir," Dr. Coleman barked. Jordan reattached the cannula with trembling hands, the oxygen hissing back into Lily's lungs. Cole raised his palms. She panicked. "She's fine," he said smoothly. "You people overreact." Lily's tears ran silently down her face. Through her fog, she saw the tiny red recording light of the dome camera above the bed. It blinked, once steady, watching. Jordan met Lily's gaze for a split second. No words. Just a silent promise that someone had seen what happened. But outside the room, 2 security guards whispered nervously into radios. Cole's voice carried power. His name was printed on the hospital's marble donor wall. One of the guards muttered, "Keep this quiet." As Lily drifted back into consciousness, she felt a strange clarity. The man who once swore to protect her had just chosen control over compassion. And somewhere inside that cold, shining building, a tiny camera might hold the only proof that she wasn't insane. But she didn't know yet by morning that proof would vanish, and her nightmare would officially begin. The baby's first cry echoed through the sterile birthing suite, a sharp, trembling sound that sliced through the alarms. For a split second, everyone froze. The doctor's hands moved fast, the monitor calmed. Lily gasped as oxygen filled her lungs again, her world flickering back into focus. She turned her head, desperate to see her child. "Is he okay?" she whispered. "He's perfect, doctor," Ava Coleman said softly. She placed the newborn briefly against Lily's chest before a nurse whisked him away for observation. Lily reached out weakly, fingertips brushing warm skin for just a heartbeat. Then he was gone into another room, another hallway, another system she couldn't see. Cole stood at the corner, arms crossed, his tux still spotless. "Let's make sure you rest," he said, tone clipped. "The press can't see you like this." Lily blinked. "Press? What are you talking about?" But he didn't answer. He was already texting someone, eyes glowing from the phone screen. Dr. Coleman frowned. "She needs quiet," she warned. "No stress, no visitors." Cole smirked. "I'm her husband, doctor. You'll follow my instructions, not hers." A silence thicker than pain filled the room. Jordan, the night nurse, quietly adjusted Lily's blankets and whispered, "Try to sleep. You're safe now." But her eyes said something else, something like, "Be careful." When Lily woke again, it was daylight. Her throat ached. The baby's bassinet beside her bed was empty. Confused, she pressed the call button. A young nurse she didn't recognize entered with a polite, practiced smile. "Mr. Maddox ordered the baby transferred to the neonatal care wing," she said. "Just precautionary." Lily's stomach dropped. "Without me? I didn't authorize that." "I'm sorry, ma'am." It's standard when the father requests observation. Lily stared at her, speechless. She turned toward the window where the Manhattan skyline glimmered cold and indifferent. Cole had taken control of her body last night, and now her child. Across the city, a hospital administrator read an urgent email stamped with Cole's company logo. Confidential. Narrative Management Protocol. Attached was a drafted press release. CEO heroically supports wife through complicated labor. Every word a lie. Back in the suite, Lily demanded her phone. It wasn't on the tray table anymore. She searched the drawers, nothing. "Where's my phone?" she asked Jordan when the nurse returned. Jordan hesitated, eyes flicking to the security camera. "They said it was misplaced during cleanup," she murmured. "But I'll find it." Lily grabbed her hand. "Please, if something happens, tell my brothers." Jordan nodded once. "Write their names." She tore a page from her notepad and slid it under Lily's pillow when no one was watching. Ethan, Marcus, Bennett Hale. That evening, Dr. Coleman entered quietly. "Lily, I need you to know something. The report says you became agitated and pulled your own oxygen tube. That's not true, and I've already documented the real version. But you need to protect yourself. He's a donor here." Lily's breath hitched. "What does that mean?" "It means the hospital board listens to him more than they listen to me." Dr. Coleman squeezed her shoulder. "I'll keep your file backed up. Whatever happens, don't let anyone sign for you." After the doctor left, Lily felt the walls closing in. Outside her door, she heard Cole's voice arguing with Staffelo, commanding. She couldn't make out the words, only the rhythm of authority. She pressed her hand over her heart, whispering to herself, "Breathe, Lily. Just breathe." The monitor beeped softly in rhythm with her pulse. She looked up at the blinking red camera above. It was still on, still recording. Or, so she thought. Because at 2:07 a.m., while she finally drifted into sleep, a hospital IT technician received a midnight order from Executive Priority Clearance. The command: purge all video logs from Suite 11 Amperes. Immediate. And by dawn, the footage that could have saved her future was gone forever. The message arrived at 3:42 a.m. Ethan Hale was in his glass-walled Park Avenue office, reviewing a late investment deck on his MacBook Pro when the notification appeared on his screen. The subject line froze his blood. "Help me. He took our son." It was from his sister, Lily. He read it twice, then once more, his pulse pounding so hard he could hear it. She never used those words, not help, not he. Ethan, Marcus, and Bennett had always protected their little sister like she was made of glass, but lately, she'd insisted she was happy. "He's intense," she'd said once, "but he takes care of me." Now she was alone, recovering from childbirth, and her husband, the CEO, whose name was plastered across billboards, had taken her baby. Ethan didn't think. He dialed Marcus in Palo Alto. The line clicked after one ring. "You saw the email too?" Marcus asked, his voice sharp, code screens flickering across his lenses. "Pack what you need," Ethan said. "We're going to New York." "What about Bennett?" "I already texted him. He's on his way to Houston Airport." By sunrise, the Hale brothers were in motion like a single organism. Private jet refueled. Lawyers called. Marcus's laptop streamed real-time stock alerts on Cole's company, Maddox Systems, its ticker, MXS, already dipping from rumors of family emergency. Ethan didn't care about markets. He cared about Lily's breathing, her fear, her child. Inside the jet, silence reigned except for the soft hum of turbines and the hiss of freshly poured coffee. Bennett, the youngest, leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "We don't even know what he's done," he muttered. Ethan's jaw tightened. "He's done something you don't recover from." Marcus scrolled through hospital databases, tracing Cole's digital footprints. "He donated $500,000 to Lenox Hill last year," he said. "Guess which department?" "OBGYN." Ethan's expression darkened. "So he owns the place that let this happen." The brothers exchanged a look that needed no words. Meanwhile, across Manhattan, Lily sat in her hospital bed staring at the clock. No one had told her when she could see her son again. She pressed the call button for the third time, but the nurse who entered only smiled mechanically. "Soon, Mrs. Maddox. Just rest." When she turned her head, She saw a familiar badge dangling from a cart. Jordan Pike. RN. Jordan's eyes flicked up, recognition flashing. She mouthed silently. They deleted the footage. Then she slipped a small folded note beneath Lily's water cup before leaving. Lily opened it after the nurse disappeared. 4 words. I have 1 copy. Shenzing. Back on the jet, Marcus's screen pinged. Incoming attachment, he said. A short clip grainy, incomplete played for 5 seconds. Cole's voice snarled. Then maybe this will make you listen. The monitor alarm wailed. The footage cut. Bennett's knuckles whitened. He hurt her during labor. Ethan stared out the window, the city skyline coming into view through dawn haze. Then we're going to hurt his empire with law, not fists. When they landed at Teterboro, their driver handed Ethan a sealed envelope from Alan Chen, a litigation attorney the family trusted for years. Inside was a note. Cole Maddox has already filed for temporary guardianship citing mental instability. Proceed carefully. Marcus exhaled. He's framing her. Then we prove otherwise, Ethan said. He looked at both his brothers. This isn't about revenge. It's about making sure she breathes freely again. By 9 a.m., 3 black sedans pulled up outside Lenox Hill Hospital. Security tried to block their entrance, quoting executive restriction orders. Ethan flashed a copy of the Hale Trust's legal ownership of several hospital investments. You'll want to call your counsel, he said coolly. Minutes later, they were inside. Lily looked up as the door opened, her face pale but alive. You came, she whispered. Ethan knelt beside her bed, gripping her hand. Always. 4. She tried to smile, but tears spilled instead. He took the baby. We'll get him back, Ethan said softly. But first, we make sure no one ever takes your breath again. What none of them knew yet was that Cole had already filed another motion, one that could legally erase Lily's credibility before the truth even reached a courtroom. The moment the Hale brothers stepped into Lenox Hill Hospital, the air thickened with tension. Security guards glanced nervously at their badges. 3 men in tailored suits, sharp as blades, didn't belong in the sterile quiet of the maternity ward. Ethan led the way, his voice calm but cold. We're here for Lily Hale Maddox. I'm sorry, sir, the head of security replied. Mrs. Maddox is under a temporary medical restriction. No visitors allowed by court order. Court order? Bennett snapped. She just gave birth. Who the hell files a court order in a maternity wing? The guard swallowed. Her husband, sir. Mr. Maddox. Bye. Ethan froze. His face didn't move, but the muscles in his jaw ticked. Bring your legal department, he said. Now. Within minutes, a hospital administrator arrived, tailored suit, polite smile, voice rehearsed. Gentlemen, this is a delicate situation. Mr. Maddox has submitted medical documentation indicating that Mrs. Maddox experienced postpartum psychosis during delivery. For her own safety, she's under psychiatric observation for 72 hours. Shrey. Marcus blinked, disbelief sharp in his tone. He called her insane? While she was in labor? It's standard protocol, the administrator lied smoothly. Our concern is patient well-being. Ethan stepped closer. And my concern is the truth. He handed over a legal envelope. You're now served with a preservation notice. Destroying or altering medical records will qualify as obstruction. You understand? The man faltered. We have, of course. See. Down the corridor, behind a locked door, Lily sat in a small room lined with beige walls and no windows. The psychiatric wing smelled faintly of antiseptic and something lonelier fear. Her hospital gown hung loose around her shoulders. Her wrists trembled as she clutched the photo bracelet of her newborn son. A nurse entered with a clipboard. Time for medication. Mrs. Maddox. I don't want any drugs, Lily said softly. It's doctor's orders. Who's doctor? The nurse hesitated. Mr. Maddox's physician signed the form. Lily's chest tightened. Please, I just want my baby. I'm sorry, the nurse murmured, leaving the pills on the tray before stepping out. Moments later, the door opened again. Not the nurse this time. It was Jordan Pike. She slipped inside quickly, shutting the door behind her. You don't have long, she whispered. They're moving your records to the private server Cole controls. He paid for the hospital's cloud system last year. I heard the IT staff talking. Lily's eyes widened. He owns everything. Jordan nodded. Almost. But I copied one of the reports to an external drive. The oxygen incident, it's in the metadata. I just need to get it to your brothers. Before Lily could answer, footsteps echoed in the hall. Jordan vanished through the opposite door, leaving a whisper behind. Hold on. They're here. 1. At that exact moment, Ethan, Marcus, and Bennett were escorted into a consultation room with a hospital attorney. Cole Maddox was already there, wearing a gray Armani suit, not a wrinkle in sight. He smiled when he saw them. Brothers-in-law, he greeted. So nice of you to come. Ethan's eyes narrowed. Where's my sister's baby? With the neonatal team, perfectly safe. Safer than with her, I'd argue. Bennett lunged forward. But Ethan's arm stopped him. You drugged her. You isolated her. Cole shrugged. She's unstable. The doctor's reports say so. Marcus leaned forward, sliding a USB drive onto the table. Funny thing about reports, they can be cross-referenced. And this one shows your oxygen interference. For the first time, Cole's smirk faltered. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, we know exactly what you did, Ethan said, voice steady. And we're done talking. They turned to leave. Cole called after them. You think you can beat me in my city? I own this hospital, this narrative, and every pixel of data you're chasing. Ethan paused at the door. Then we'll own what you fear most, proof. As the brothers walked out, the hallway lights flickered. Inside the locked psychiatric room, Lily heard a faint click, the sound of her door being double-locked from the outside. And somewhere in the hospital basement, a hard drive containing her last defense was being quietly wiped clean under Cole's personal authorization. The sky over Manhattan looked like burnished steel that morning, a mirror of the chaos inside Lenox Hill. Lily sat in the locked psychiatric room, the pill tray untouched, her heart pounding every time footsteps passed the door. The tiny window at the top of the wall showed only a slice of gray daylight. Downstairs, the Hale brothers were already at war. Ethan stood at the reception counter, phone pressed to his ear. Alan, file the injunction now, he said. Restraining order, emergency custody block, and subpoena for all patient logs. Yes, today. Across the lobby, Marcus had his laptop open, his fingers flying over the keyboard. He's using a shell company called Northstone Health Systems, he muttered. It's tied directly to Maddox Systems' charity account. Cole's laundering donations through the hospital foundation. Bennett looked up from his phone. So he bought the place he committed a crime in. Exactly, Marcus said. Which means he left a paper trail. Ethan turned toward the double doors that led to the elevator. Cole appeared at the far end of the corridor, flanked by 2 hospital executives. The man moved with the confidence of someone who'd already bribed half the building. His expression was polished, almost amused. Well, Cole said smoothly, the cavalry's here. Did you bring pitchforks or just paperwork? Ethan's tone was cold. We brought facts. He handed him a thick folder. Affidavit from Dr. Ava Coleman. She witnessed you interfere with a patient's oxygen during active labor. Cole chuckled, low and arrogant. You think one doctor's note scares me? I fund her salary. The board will discredit her before lunch. Then we'll go over your board, Marcus said. Straight to the Department of Health. Cole stepped closer, his cologne sharp as alcohol. You boys forget I don't play in your moral sandbox. I build it. Ethan didn't blink. Then you'll drown in it. Moments later, Alan Chen, the brother's attorney, arrived with a courier bag full of documents. He set them on the counter with precision. Preservation letter filed. Temporary restraining order pending. If any record disappears, this hospital's legal liability triples. Cole's jaw tightened. You're bluffing. Try me, Alan said quietly. Upstairs, Lily heard voices in the hall. The key rattled in her door. Dr. Coleman entered, exhaustion etched across her face. Lily, she whispered. You have to stay calm. Your brothers are downstairs fighting for you. Lily's eyes filled with tears. He's saying I'm crazy. I know. But I documented everything. I logged the oxygen levels, the alarm timestamps, even the nurse's panic call. It's all real. Lily exhaled shakily. Then why am I locked here? Because money writes the first draft, Dr. Coleman said softly, but truth edits it later. Before she left, the doctor pressed something into Lily's palm, a folded photo of her newborn son. He's beautiful, she said. And he's waiting for you. In the main lobby, security buzzed with murmurs as Cole's legal team entered, sleek, ruthless, expensive. The lead attorney, a woman in a navy Prada suit, dropped a thick motion packet onto the desk. Mr. Maddox requests exclusive guardianship until Mrs. Maddox completes her psychiatric evaluation, effective immediately. Ethan scanned the papers and exhaled slowly. She's not the one who needs evaluation. Bennett slammed a fist against the wall. They're taking her baby. Again. Not if we take the narrative first, Marcus said. He turned his laptop toward them, showing a still frame of hospital security footage, grainy but clear enough. Cole standing over Lily's bed, his hand near her face. It's partial, but it's enough to start a story. Ethan nodded. Then we tell it loud. They walked out of the hospital together, 3 silhouettes against the Manhattan sunlight, determination cutting through exhaustion. But inside, Cole watched them leave from the mezzanine window, his reflection merging with theirs. He smiled thinly, pulling out his phone to make one call to a judge he'd helped promote years ago. By nightfall, the order to transfer Lily to a secure facility would be signed, and the brothers' victory would evaporate before it even began. The world outside still believed Cole Maddox was the perfect husband, the billionaire visionary who balanced empire and family with flawless charm. But inside a quiet corner of Lenox Hill Hospital, truth flickered on a small laptop screen. Marcus sat hunched over the device, blue light reflecting in his eyes. The grainy footage stuttered, glitched, then came into focus. Cole's hand shot out, ripping the oxygen tube from Lily's face. The monitor screamed. Lily gasped, the camera shaking from the alarm vibration. Then blackout. Jordan Pike, the nurse who'd risked everything to copy the clip, stood beside him, wringing her hands. It's all I could recover, she whispered. The rest of the files corrupted. Someone tampered with the servers after 2 a.m. Ethan leaned forward, his voice low but steady. Can this be authenticated? Yes. The metadata matches the original hospital timestamp. It's real. Bennett clenched his jaw. Then we use it. Jordan's eyes darted toward the hallway. If Cole finds out I helped, I'll lose my license, maybe worse. Ethan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You did the right thing. You saved her. He turned toward Marcus. Make 5 encrypted copies. 1 for our lawyer, 1 off-site, 1 in the cloud, 1 with me, 1 with her. Marcus smirked. Already on it. Downstairs, in a different wing, Lily was being escorted through the hall by 2 orderlies. Her wrists weren't cuffed, but the humiliation felt the same. They told her she was being transferred to a private recovery clinic. She didn't know yet that Cole had ordered the move himself. Dr. Coleman intercepted them near the elevator. Where are you taking my patient? Transfer request, signed by her husband, one orderly replied. That's illegal, the doctor snapped. She's conscious. She hasn't consented. Talk to the admin. Then get him down here, Dr. Coleman said, standing in their path like a wall. Now, they hesitated, and for the first time in hours, Lily saw someone defy Cole's power. Meanwhile, in the brothers' rented conference suite across the street, Alan Chen watched the footage with a litigator's eye. This, he said slowly, is assault under New York Penal Law 120. 0 intentional injury, potentially elevated to felony because it occurred during medical care. Ethan folded his arms. So, we have him. Not yet, Alan cautioned. This video can't leak prematurely. We need chain of custody, witness affidavits, and medical corroboration. If we go public too soon, he'll claim manipulation. Bennett slammed his palm on the table. He already manipulated everything. Alan didn't flinch. That's why we build this like a bomb, carefully, quietly, so when it blows, he can't crawl away. Back at the hospital, Jordan rushed to Lily's room. They're trying to move you, she whispered. You can't let them. She slipped a small flash drive into Lily's hand. This is the proof. Don't lose it. Lily stared at it, trembling. What's on it? Your breath, Jordan said softly, the one he tried to take. Moments later, Cole stormed into the ward, furious. Where is she? He demanded. The staff stiffened, eyes downcast. He spotted Lily holding the drive and snatched it from her palm. "Still hiding lies?" he hissed. Before he could pocket it, Dr. Coleman appeared behind him. "You'll hand that back," she said. He turned, fake smile in place. "Doctor, you're overstepping." "Am I?" She gestured to the security camera above them. "You're on record again." For the first time, Cole hesitated. Then he tossed the drive onto the bed and stormed out. Lily clutched it to her chest as the door closed. For the first time since labor, she felt something she hadn't dared to feel: control. But down the hall, a hospital IT technician opened an encrypted email from an unknown sender. "Locate and seize all external drives related to patient 11 amperes. Discretion required." And by midnight, Lily's proof would no longer be in her hands but in Cole's private vault, ready to disappear forever. The next morning, the headlines were already bending the story. Tech CEO supports wife during difficult birth. Sources confirm Lily Maddox's emotional breakdown. Every outlet used the same phrasing, the same photographs: Lily's tired, frightened face cropped from hospital surveillance. Cole's PR machine had worked overnight. Ethan scrolled through the articles on his iPhone, rage building behind his calm expression. "He's winning the public," he said. "Not for long," Marcus replied, eyes fixed on multiple screens in the conference suite. His fingers danced across the keyboard, hacking through layers of corporate data. "Look at this." Cole's company filed 3 new subsidiaries this quarter, all with overlapping addresses, all paid by the hospital foundation. Bennett leaned over. "He's moving money?" "Not just moving it. Laundering it through healthcare donations." Marcus looked up. "Every dollar that cleans his image dirties his hands." Alan Chen walked in, carrying 2 coffees and a folder thick with legal documents. "Gentlemen, the injunction to stop Lily's transfer was denied." The judge on the case used to work at Maddox Systems' legal department. Ethan's jaw tightened. "So he bought the law now, too." Alan nodded grimly. "For now. But we can appeal." Across the street, in the hospital's luxury wing, Cole stood in front of a mirror adjusting his tie. His reflection looked flawless, but his eyes carried the sleepless shine of paranoia. Sloan Archer, his PR director and secret mistress, sat on the couch behind him, legs crossed, scrolling through Twitter. "It's working," she said. "You look like the caring husband who held his wife through hysteria." Cole smiled faintly. "Public memory's short. In a week, no one will even remember her version." "But what about the nurse?" Sloan asked. "The one who leaked that partial clip?" He met her eyes in the mirror. "Handled. She's suspended. I had hospital security flag her as emotionally unstable." Sloan hesitated. "And the brothers?" Cole's tone turned colder. "They'll burn their own credibility chasing conspiracy. I've already instructed the board to review their family trust investments. Let's see how ethical they look when I'm done." He picked up his Rolex from the dresser, slid it on, and turned to Sloan. "Book the plaza for lunch. Tell the press we're donating another $1 million to maternal wellness. Free." Back in the Hale Brothers suite, Marcus's monitor blinked. "Wait. Someone's altering Lily's medical records in real time." He projected the data onto the wall. "See this? They're adding psychiatric codes under her name: delusional episode, self-harm risk." Bennett slammed his fist into his palm. "He's rewriting her into a mental patient." Ethan took a deep breath, then turned to Alan. "File an emergency appeal. If they move her to another facility, we'll lose jurisdiction." "Finn." Alan nodded and left immediately. For the first time, Ethan sat down, hands steepled in front of his face. "He's playing a long game," he said quietly. "He's not trying to just silence her. He's erasing her." Marcus's phone buzzed a new message from Jordan Pike. "He knows about the clip. It is scrubbing everything. I'm sorry." The 3 brothers looked at each other. Marcus whispered, "If he wipes that footage, it's over." "Then we don't let him," Ethan said. "We take it higher." "Tyson." He grabbed his phone and called a contact he hadn't spoken to in years, a senior producer at NBC Investigations. "I've got something for you," he said. "A story about a CEO who cut off his wife's oxygen during labor. You'll want to hear this." The line went silent for a beat. Then the producer's voice came, low and cautious. "Send proof. But be careful. People who cross that man don't stay safe for long. Ethan hung up, turning to his brothers. Then we move fast. Outside, thunder rolled over Manhattan, the skyline darkening like a warning. And miles away, Cole's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number flashed across the screen. You can't erase what's already viral. He froze. Logged into his PR dashboard. The leaked video, 5 seconds long, blurry but damning, was spreading across Twitter and Reddit. His name was trending. Cole's empire had begun to crack. But he didn't know yet. The next fracture would come from someone inside his own company. The chandeliers at the Plaza Hotel glittered like captured stars, spilling light across polished marble floors. The air smelled of wealth-aged wine, perfume, and silent power. Cole Maddox moved through the room as if he owned it, shaking hands, smiling that same careful, curated smile that had made him Wall Street's favorite golden boy. Across the ballroom, Sloane Archer stood by the bar, scrolling through her phone, her manicured nails tapping against the glass. "You're trending again," she murmured when he approached. "Half the internet thinks you're a monster, half thinks you're a saint. Congratulations, you're officially American royalty." Cole smirked, accepting his glass of bourbon from the bartender. Infamy still sells stock. Tie. But even as he spoke, he noticed the glances, the subtle, lingering stares from investors, journalists, and board members who now whispered instead of clapped. Power was a fragile perfume. One wrong note, and it soured. At the same time, across town, Ethan and Marcus sat in a dim cafe on Fifth Avenue, watching the same gala unfold on a muted television. Cole's perfect image filled the screen. The Chiron read, CEO Cole Maddox honors Women's Health Initiative. Bennett leaned over the table. He's throwing a charity gala while Lily's locked in a psych ward. Ethan stirred his coffee slowly. That's exactly why. He's building the illusion before we expose the truth. Marcus closed his laptop, eyes dark. Then we expose it tonight. At the plaza, Cole stepped onto the stage as applause rolled through the hall. His voice carried smooth confidence. When my wife fell ill, he said, pausing just long enough for sympathy, I realized how fragile life is. That's why we're donating $2 million to maternal mental health awareness. The audience gasped softly, moved by the performance. Cameras flashed. His brand had never looked cleaner. Sloane watched from the edge of the stage, pride flickering into unease. Her phone buzzed an anonymous message. Check your inbox. You don't know what he did. Curiosity won. She opened her email and found a single attachment, a short, unedited hospital clip. The moment Cole ripped Lily's oxygen away, the monitor's alarm. Lily's gasping voice, Sloane's breath caught. Her fingers trembled as she pressed pause. When Cole stepped off stage, flushed from applause, she confronted him in the hallway. What is this? She hissed, shoving the phone toward him. His eyes flicked down. He went pale for a heartbeat, then smiled. A deepfake. You know how the internet works. Sloane stared at him. Tell me, it's not real. He leaned in close, whispering. You like the life I give you? The clothes, the car, that apartment on Madison. Then stop asking questions. Her pulse raced. You hurt her, didn't you? Cole chuckled. She'll survive. I always make sure they survive. She took a step back. They? His smirk said everything. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Marcus's phone buzzed. An encrypted notification popped up. Video link verified. Source, S. Archer. Ethan's brow furrowed. Who's S. Archer? His PR director, Marcus said. She's leaking it. Back at the plaza, Cole clinked glasses with an investor, pretending not to notice Sloane slip out a side door. She walked into the rain, her expression shattered. Within minutes, she uploaded the clip to a cloud server under an alias, just in case something happened to her. Inside, Cole's phone vibrated violently. Notifications flooded in. CEO Cole Maddox abuse video. Is the Maddox Foundation a cover-up? His face drained of color. He stormed toward the exit, past waiters and champagne towers, past reporters already whispering into phones. In the limousine outside, Sloane's seat was empty, just a single Cartier bracelet left on the leather seat. Cole's hand shook as he reached for it. He didn't know yet, but by morning, that bracelet would be on the cover of every paper in New York, beside the headline, The Woman Who Leaked the Truth. and the empire he built on charm and silence would finally begin to fall apart. The clip had burned through the internet like wildfire. By dawn, it was everywhere on news channels, Twitter feeds, private group chats. The footage was grainy, but there was no mistaking what it showed. Cole Maddox standing over his laboring wife, ripping her oxygen away as alarms screamed. No voiceover, no filter, just cold, unedited truth. Lily saw it from her hospital bed. The TV in the psychiatric ward was muted, but her face appeared on the screen, her crying, her fear, her humiliation. And suddenly, the narrative had changed. The world wasn't calling her crazy anymore. They were calling her a survivor. Dr. Ava Coleman entered quietly, shutting the door behind her. "Lily," she said softly, "it's out there. Everyone's seen it. You need to prepare for what comes next." Lily's hands shook. "Am I free to go?" "Not yet." Cole's lawyers filed a motion claiming the video violates his privacy. "But that's not going to hold." She handed Lily a folder. "I've contacted the Manhattan District Attorney. They're opening a criminal investigation. You'll need to give a statement." Lily's eyes filled with tears. "He almost killed me. No one believed me." The doctor's voice steadied. "Now they do." Across the city, Cole's penthouse had become a war room. The blinds were drawn. His legal team crowded around the table, their faces grim. Sloan was nowhere to be found. Cole slammed his fist against the marble countertop. "How did this leak?" One lawyer cleared his throat. "The file originated from your company's private server. Whoever had admin accessed." Cole cut him off. "You think I care about how? Fix it. Issue a statement saying it's AI generated. Sue the platforms. Flood the feeds with deepfakes if you have to." But even as he barked orders, his reflection in the glass looked smaller, sweat beading at his collar. The man who once controlled headlines was now controlled by them. Meanwhile, Ethan, Marcus, and Bennett escorted Lily out of the hospital under police protection. Reporters shouted questions as cameras flashed. Ethan shielded her with his coat, guiding her into the waiting Mercedes S-Class. "Where are we going?" Lily asked, voice trembling. "To the DA's office," Ethan said. "You're giving your statement." The ride down Park Avenue felt surreal. Manhattan glimmered outside the window, the city that had once belonged to Cole now whispering against him. Inside the district attorney's office, Assistant DA Marissa Vega, sharp woman in her 40s, sat across from Lily, recorder on the table. "Take your time," she said gently. Lily inhaled shakily. "It happened during labor. He wanted me to sign papers giving him control of our assets. When I refused, he pulled the oxygen tube from my nose. I couldn't breathe. The doctor and nurse came in before I passed out." "Did you feel your life was in danger?" "Yes." "And did he apologize?" "No. He said I was hysterical." Marissa nodded, expression firm. "We'll file charges for felony assault and reckless endangerment. The video is corroboration. You're safe now." Lily exhaled for what felt like the first time in months. Back at Maddox Systems headquarters, Cole stormed into the executive boardroom. The CFO and 2 directors were waiting. The mood was ice. "We have to issue a response," the CFO said. "Investors are panicking. The stock's down 40%. Cole slammed his phone on the table. "You're all cowards. This will pass." But as he looked around, he saw the doubt in their eyes. For the first time, the room that once echoed his voice now echoed his downfall. Outside the DA's office, Lily stepped into the autumn sunlight, the city air sharp and clean. Reporters shouted, cameras flashing, but she didn't hide. Dr. Coleman met her by the curb, smiling faintly. "You did it," she said. "Now justice begins." Lily nodded, her voice steady. "No, justice breathes." What none of them knew was that Cole still had one last weapon, a secret account of falsified medical data that could twist the case back in his favor, unless someone found it first. The DA's office had barely announced the investigation before Cole Maddox launched his counterattack. Within 24 hours, his attorneys filed a 200-page motion claiming character defamation and AI video manipulation. Cable news lit up with analysts arguing about synthetic evidence. For the first time, truth itself became a battlefield. But Ethan Hale had spent his career fighting corporate smoke. He gathered his siblings in the Hale family townhouse on East 73rd Street Marble, quiet, fortified. If he wants discovery, Ethan said, setting his Mont Blanc pen on the table, then he'll choke on it. Marcus opened his laptop, lines of code scrolling like rain. I'm in his company's internal Slack archive. You're going to want to see this. He projected the chat logs onto the wall. Cole's name appeared again and again. Delete the medical folder by midnight. Make sure she looks unstable. Dr. Coleman won't testify once the board reminds her who pays the rent. Bennett stared, fists tight. He bribed the hospital board. Worse, Marcus said. He used company money to do it. Alan Chen arrived moments later, briefcase in hand. Gentlemen, we just received a subpoena for discovery from Cole's team. They're demanding Lily's full psychiatric history, including therapy notes from years ago. Ethan's expression darkened. They're trying to humiliate her in court. Lily, sitting quietly in the corner, finally spoke. Then we give them the real records. Every word, every scar. I've hidden enough. Her brothers looked at her surprised, proud, a little afraid. You sure? Ethan asked softly. She nodded. If he wants to weaponize my pain, let him. But he'll never understand that surviving it makes me stronger. Alan smiled faintly. That might be the testimony that wins the jury before the trial even starts. Meanwhile, across the city at Maddox Systems headquarters, panic was spreading. Cole paced the 30th floor boardroom, the skyline glowing like a cage around him. His CFO whispered. The auditors found discrepancies in the charity accounts. They're asking questions about transfers to Northstone Health Systems. Cole glared. Tell them to check their math. I don't pay people to think. But his voice cracked mid-sentence. He knew the numbers weren't a mistake. They were a crime. At that same hour, Marcus decrypted another file from Cole's email archive. Got it, he said. A hidden offshore account in the Cayman Islands. Same one that funded his hospital donations. We trace that. We prove motive. Ethan called the DA directly. We're sending new evidence to your secure server. It links corporate fraud to the assault. The DA's reply was short. We'll move this to a grand jury. For Cole, the walls began closing in. His phone buzzed nonstop shareholders, lawyers, journalists. His reflection in the window looked like a ghost of power. Then came the message that chilled him. Board demands emergency meeting tomorrow. Attendance mandatory. 5. The next morning, he walked into the conference room wearing his most expensive suit, clutching a Rolex like a talisman. But the mood was already decided. Ethan sat at the far end, calm, unreadable. Next to him, a court representative placed a thick folder on the table. Inside, screenshots, wire transfers, the video transcript, and medical logs showing Lily's oxygen levels during the assault. Cole tried to speak. This is a smear campaign. The chairman cut him off. No, Cole. This is discovery. The silence was lethal. One by one, board members turned in their badges. Stock tickers outside the glass wall showed MXS plummeting in red lines. Cole stood frozen as Ethan gathered the papers. You wanted war, Ethan said quietly. You just got one with evidence. That night, news broke. SEC launches investigation into Maddox Systems. The markets trembled, and for the first time in years, Cole Maddox's empire looked mortal. Across town, Lily watched the report with her son asleep on her chest. She whispered, "Truth breathes slower than lies, but it lasts longer." And as Cole's world unraveled, a new file surfaced on the dark web, a backup from his own assistant, containing secrets even Ethan hadn't seen yet. The first snow of the season drifted over Manhattan like ash, silent, weightless, merciless. Inside a brownstone in the Upper East Side, Lily sat at the window with baby Miles asleep in her arms. The city below shimmered in Christmas lights, but she didn't feel the season. Every lullaby felt half-haunted. Her brothers tried to make the townhouse feel like a home. Marcus had installed new security cameras. Bennett cooked simple meals. Ethan managed the flood of reporters outside. But Lily moved through the rooms, like someone relearning gravity. When the baby stirred, she hummed softly, her fingers brushing his tiny hand. "You're safe now," she whispered, though she wasn't sure she believed it. On the TV, the news played in the background. Former tech mogul Cole Maddox faces multiple investigations, including charges of fraud and assault. Lily muted the sound before the anchor could finish his name. Dr. Ava Coleman stopped by that afternoon, bringing coffee and documents. "He's losing everything," she said quietly. "But that means he's dangerous. You should know his defense is changing strategy." "See?" Lily frowned. "What strategy?" "He's filing a countersuit, claiming you conspired with your brothers to destroy his reputation for financial gain." Lily's lips trembled, but she didn't cry this time. "Of course he is." Ava placed a hand on her shoulder. "You're not powerless, Lily. You have truth, and people who won't sell it." Later, when Ava left, Lily opened her laptop. She hadn't used it since before the birth. The background photo was a picture of her painting studio, a forgotten dream. She stared at the blank document for a long moment, then began typing. Statement of facts. The day he cut my oxygen. Every keystroke felt like reclaiming oxygen. She wrote about the fear, the pain, the silence that followed. But she also wrote about survival, how the body remembers mercy, even when the world doesn't. Marcus entered quietly, reading over her shoulder. "You're turning it into a testimony?" "No," Lily said, still typing. "Into a record." Before they twisted again, down in the corporate world, Cole's once loyal executives were scrambling. Stockholders demanded answers, the SEC froze his assets, and banks began recalling loans. His lawyers begged him to settle quietly, but Cole wasn't built for surrender. He stared at his reflection in the mirror of his penthouse bathroom, eyes bloodshot, jaw set. "They can take my company," he muttered, "but not my name." He called a contact at a tabloid. "You'll get exclusive emails proving she planned this. Make it run front page." An hour later, Marcus intercepted the transfer. "Fake," he said, grinning. "Deep fake metadata, sloppy work. He's desperate." Ethan smiled grimly. "Then we stay quiet. Let him bury himself." That night, Lily fed Miles by lamplight. The city outside howled with winter wind, but inside the room, there was only warmth. Ethan watched from the doorway. "You don't have to testify if it's too much," he said. Lily looked up. "He took my breath once. He won't take my voice." The next morning, she walked into Maddox Systems headquarters, not as a victim, but as a witness. Cameras flashed. She didn't flinch. She wore a simple black coat, hair tied back, no jewelry. Only calm. Inside the boardroom, the new interim CEO greeted her. "We're releasing a statement today," he said. "The company's cooperation with the investigation will be total. You should see this." He handed her a letter, the board's public apology. It acknowledged her by name. Lily Hale Maddox, survivor and mother, whose courage reminds us that integrity must breathe louder than profit. She read it twice before whispering. It's the first honest thing they've ever written. Outside, cameras caught her exiting the building with Miles in her arms, snowflakes landing softly on both their faces. But across town, in a dim apartment, Cole watched that same footage on a cracked TV screen. His jaw clenched as he whispered to himself, "You think you've won." He didn't know that the next document Lily was writing wasn't a statement, but a plan that would erase the last of his power forever. The January wind swept through Wall Street like a blade. Inside the glass tower of Maddox Systems, the atmosphere was even colder. It was earnings day, the first one since Cole Maddox's empire had begun to crack. Reporters clustered outside, cameras pointed at the revolving doors. The company's stock ticker scrolled red, reflecting off the marble floor like a wound. Employees whispered in elevators, afraid to make eye contact. Cole arrived flanked by lawyers, wearing his signature navy suit and an arrogance that looked paper-thin. His reflection in the lobby glass was sharper than reality, perfect posture, hollow eyes. He whispered to himself, "They still need me." But upstairs, the boardroom told another story. Ethan and Marcus had secured access as major shareholders of Hale Capital, one of Maddox Systems' oldest investors. Bennett sat quietly behind them, expression unreadable. The CFO began the presentation. "Revenue growth this quarter is," Cole interrupted, smiling, "projected to beat analyst expectations by 4%. The CFO hesitated. "Actually, sir, that projection hasn't been confirmed by the auditors." Cole's eyes cut through him. "Then confirm it." Ethan leaned forward, voice calm but cold. "Maybe the auditors can't confirm it because the books were rewritten with money from hospital charities." The room went still. Cole laughed softly. "Ah, the family crusaders. Tell me, Ethan, how's it feel being the moral compass in a world built on compromise? Ethan didn't answer. Instead, Marcus opened his MacBook and connected to the screen. Allow me to present a short video, he said. The monitors flickered. A Zoom call recording filled the room. Cole's own voice, dated weeks earlier. Move the charity funds into R&D. Rename the line item. No one checks donation flows. They only check quarterly gains. The CFO looked like he'd been slapped. Cole, you said those were deferred grants. They were, Cole snapped. You're all misinterpreting context. Pizit. But the shareholders had already started murmuring. Meanwhile, outside the building, Lily sat in a black sedan, watching the live broadcast through her phone. Miles slept beside her, unaware of history rewriting itself in real time. She clutched a silver locket around her neck, the same one Dr. Coleman had given her the day she left the hospital. Inside the boardroom, the chairman cleared his throat. Mr. Maddox, given the criminal investigation and financial inconsistencies, the board is calling for an emergency ethics vote, effective immediately. Cole's composure cracked. You can't vote me out. This is my company. It was, Ethan said quietly. The votes came in digital, silent, devastating. 10 against, 1 abstaining. Cole Maddox was officially removed as CEO of Maddox Systems. The room buzzed with restrained relief. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself a breath. Marcus closed his laptop with a soft click that sounded like justice. Cole stood frozen, eyes wide. You'll regret this, he hissed. You think this ends with a board vote? You're amateurs in a game I built. He stormed out, slamming the glass doors so hard they shuddered. Outside, the media was waiting. Cameras swarmed him, questions firing like bullets. Mr. Maddox, are the assault allegations true? Did you misuse charitable funds? Cole pushed past them, his voice cracking. No comment. But the world had already commented for him. The stock plummeted another 20% within the hour. When the news reached Lily, she didn't cheer. She just whispered, "He's finally breathing his own poison." Later that night, the ticker outside Times Square flashed a headline that made the city pause. Cole Maddox removed as CEO, federal charges pending. Inside her apartment, Lily laid Miles in his crib and whispered, "We're free, baby. For real this time. Bye." But freedom had a price. Because as the city slept, a man in a dark overcoat slipped into a data center in Jersey City, using Cole's old credentials. On his drive, a single folder name glowed in blue light. Hale Family Trust. Offshore transactions. By morning, a new scandal would rise, and Lily's family name would be the next headline. The morning after Cole's removal, Manhattan buzzed like a hive that had tasted blood. Every major outlet carried the story. Disgraced CEO ousted after scandal. Justice for Lily Maddox. The video that ended a billionaire. But the world had barely finished celebrating before Cole's next move began. In a small brownstone office near Park Avenue, his new legal strategist, a ruthless crisis consultant named Raymond Holt, tapped a file onto the desk. "You've lost your company," he said coolly. "So win it back from the shadows." Cole leaned forward, eyes hollow but burning. "How?" "Proxy war," Holt replied. "We'll buy controlling interest through shell firms. By the time they realize who's behind them, you'll own the board again. And while we're at it, we smear the Hales. Public opinion turns fast." Cole smiled faintly. "Then start the fire." Across the city, Ethan, Marcus, and Bennett were meeting with Alan Chen in a midtown conference room overlooking Central Park. "The vote went through," Alan said. "But it's not over. Cole's people are buying up stock quietly. He's trying to stage a comeback." Ethan's jaw tightened. "Then we counter it." Marcus spun his laptop around. Already ahead of him, I traced multiple offshore purchases. They all route back to an entity in Zurich called Horizon Ridge AG. Registered 2 weeks ago. Guess whose lawyer signed it? Alan smiled grimly. "Let me guess, Raymond Holt." "Exactly," Bennett exhaled. "So, what's the plan?" Ethan looked out the window at the Manhattan skyline. "We go public this time with precision. If Cole wants a proxy war, we'll write a proxy letter." That night, under the glow of a Tiffany desk lamp, Ethan typed every word himself. The document was surgical, emotionless, and devastating. To the shareholders of Maddox Systems, integrity is the only currency that survives bankruptcy. We propose the permanent removal of Cole Maddox from all corporate capacities. This is not vengeance. It is governance. Z. At the bottom, he added a line that made Marcus pause. Our goal is not spectacle. It is safety for employees, investors, and families. By morning, the letter hit every inbox on Wall Street. The Hale brothers signed it jointly, attaching the evidence packages, the fraudulent charity transfers, the doctored hospital files, the proof that Cole had fabricated psychiatric reports to frame Lily. The financial world erupted. CNBC ran a breaking banner. Hale family launches proxy revolt against former CEO. Reporters camped outside Ethan's townhouse. Is this revenge? They shouted. Are you trying to destroy him? Ethan answered calmly. No. He did that himself. Meanwhile, in a dim suite at the plaza, Cole threw a glass against the wall. The whiskey splattered like blood. They're painting me as a monster. Holt didn't flinch. Then, act like a martyr. Cole stopped pacing. Meaning? Leak something personal, something tragic. Sympathy buys time. Cole hesitated, then nodded. I'll say she set me up. Holt frowned. You can't win against the footage. Cole's lips curled. Then I'll make new footage. The next day, a new video appeared online, a shaky recording from an unknown source, showing Lily supposedly yelling at hospital staff, her eyes wide, her voice frantic. The caption read, "Unstable wife or wronged woman?" Social media fractured. Half the commenters called her brave, the other half called her manipulative. Marcus analyzed the file within hours. It's fake, he said. He deep-faked her face onto another patient's breakdown. Bennett slammed his fist. He's gone nuclear. Ethan said nothing. He was already typing another letter. Then we end this in daylight. At sunset, the Hale brothers held a live press conference outside the courthouse. Ethan's words cut through the noise. Justice doesn't need to scream. It just needs to stand long enough for truth to breathe. The clip went viral within hours. Lily watched it from home, tears running silently down her face. But across the river, in a cold office filled with monitors, Cole watched too. His reflection shimmered in the screen's glow as he whispered, "Let them think they've won. They haven't seen my last move. See." And his last move was already in motion, a sealed envelope addressed to the DA, containing something that could shatter more than reputations. It could burn the Hales themselves. Snow fell over Park Avenue in thick, hushed flakes, turning the city's sharp edges soft. It was a peaceful morning, except for the convoy of unmarked police cars gliding toward the Maddox penthouse. Inside, Cole stood in front of his bathroom mirror, adjusting his tie as if nothing in his world had cracked. His reflection looked composed, but his eyes trembled like glass. The doorbell rang once, then again harder. His housekeeper peeked from the kitchen. "Sir, there are men downstairs, police, I think." Cole's pulse quickened. They must be here for a statement. But when he opened the door, reality hit him like a cold wind. Two NYPD detectives stood under the marble archway, badges raised. Cole Maddox, the taller one, said, "You're under arrest for aggravated assault, corporate fraud, and obstruction of justice." Cole blinked. "Excuse me? You have the right to remain silent," the detective continued. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." Cole laughed, the sound brittle. "You're making a mistake. I'm a donor to this city. I've built half the tech infrastructure you people use." The detective's tone didn't change. "Then you'll appreciate that we're recording this on very reliable equipment." Behind them, photographers emerged from black vans. The flashbulbs lit the snow like lightning. The city that once bowed to Cole Maddox now watched him cuffed in his own doorway. He shouted after them, "I'm innocent. This is a setup." But the only answer was the sound of a camera shutter. Across town, Ethan Hale was pouring coffee in his office when his phone buzzed. A notification from the New York Times. Breaking. Former CEO Cole Maddox arrested at Park Avenue penthouse. Marcus looked up from his laptop. "It's done?" Ethan exhaled slowly. "No, it's beginning." At that same moment, Lily was rocking Miles in her townhouse. She saw the headline flash across her iPad screen. Her knees went weak. The baby stirred, and she whispered, "It's over, sweetheart. It's finally over." But Dr. Ava Coleman, who arrived moments later, didn't share the relief. "He's dangerous even behind bars," she warned. "He's got lawyers who treat laws like puzzles to bend." Meanwhile, Cole sat in the back of the police cruiser, snowflakes melting on his cuffed hands. He tried to reach his lawyer, but his phone had been confiscated. As the city blurred past the window, anger replaced fear. "They think this is the end," he thought. "They have no idea how deep my hands reach." At the 17th precinct, he was booked, fingerprinted, photographed. The mugshot was plain, no lighting tricks, no curated smile, just exhaustion and rage. Hours later, Ethan and Alan Chen arrived at the DA's office for confirmation. "He's in custody," Alan said. "But bail's likely. The fraud charges won't stick without the full financial trail." Marcus leaned forward. "What about the envelope he sent to the DA? The one we heard about?" Alan frowned. "Unopened yet." Bennett crossed his arms. "You think it's another fake?" Ethan shook his head. "No. He's too strategic for bluffing. It's leverage, something that hits us back." At that very moment, a clerk opened the sealed envelope in the evidence room. Inside were printed bank statements, showing large wire transfers from the Hale Family Trust to offshore accounts, the same accounts linked to Cole's fraudulent shell companies. The room fell silent. The numbers were real. The signatures Ethan's. When the news broke, the internet exploded again. Were the Hales complicit? New evidence suggests family profited from Maddox scandal. Cole, now in an interrogation room, watched the headline appear on the TV bolted to the wall. Slowly, a smile returned to his face. The detective caught it. "What's funny?" Cole leaned back, smirking. "You can't drown a man in water," he poured himself. "Check the tides this one's turning." She. Across town, Ethan's phone buzzed with a single message from an unknown number. "Still think you've won?" And for the first time since this war began, Ethan realized the monster they'd cornered still had claws and one final strike left to make. The headlines shifted overnight. Yesterday, Cole Maddox had been the villain. This morning, he was the whisper of a scandal reversed. Hale brothers under investigation for offshore transfers. Did the billionaire family frame Cole Maddox? The internet didn't care about truth, it cared about noise. And Cole had mastered noise. Inside the Hale townhouse, Ethan stood at the window as reporters crowded the street, their voices rising through the morning fog. Marcus was at the dining table, laptops open, scrolling through page after page of bank data. Bennett paced like a caged lion. "This isn't possible," Marcus muttered. "Those accounts were forged. But the signatures, they're ours." "When?" Ethan exhaled. "He cloned them. He's using our own digital IDs against us." Alan Chen burst through the door, face pale. "The DA has paused the prosecution until we clear this up. They're verifying the documents, but the optics are terrible." "Optics?" Bennett snapped. "They make it look like we funded him." Alan nodded grimly. "That's exactly the point. He wants doubt. Doubt slows justice." Meanwhile, in a high-security holding facility, Cole sat across from his attorney, smirking. "You see how fast they turned," he said. "The Hales built their reputations on clean money. All I needed was a stain." The lawyer leaned forward. "It bought us leverage. But don't get comfortable. The DA still has your video. And the financial audit from Northstone Health." Cole's smile didn't falter. "Then we replaced the truth with a louder one." Back in the Hale residence, Marcus's fingers flew across the keyboard. "He planted this through Zurich," he said. "Look, every forged document routes through Horizon Ridge AG, that fake shell he built for the proxy buyouts. If I can hack into their server logs, I can trace the upload source." Ethan nodded. "Do it. Quietly. We don't announce. We strike." Lily entered the room then, holding her son. Her face was calm, but her eyes held fire. "He's turning the public against you." Ethan looked at her. "Against us. But it won't last." Lily shook her head. "You can't fight noise with logic. You fight it with truth people feel." Marcus looked up. "Meaning?" "Meaning I go public," Lily said. "I'll speak on camera. No lawyers, no statements, just me and the truth." Ethan hesitated. "That's dangerous." He'll twist your words. Let him, Lily said quietly. People watched him rip my oxygen away. Let them see me breathe again. That evening, Lily sat before a small camera in a softly lit studio. No makeup, no script, just a mother telling her story. When he cut off my oxygen, she said, voice steady, I thought I was going to die. But worse than dying was knowing no one would believe me. He called me hysterical. They called me unstable. But I wasn't crazy. I was suffocating. And now, he wants to do the same to my family with lies instead of hands. Her eyes glistened, but she didn't cry. We're not perfect people, but we stand for something simple, that power doesn't excuse cruelty. And money doesn't erase what the truth remembers. 1. The video went viral within hours. Comments poured in by the thousands. Hashtags trended. Number Lily speaks, number justice breathes, number the Hales did not lie. In the detention center, Cole watched the clip on the news, jaw tightening. The camera zoomed on Lily's face, calm, luminous, unbroken. For the first time, his composure cracked. Turn it off, he snapped at the guard. The guard smiled faintly. Can't everyone's watching? Across town, Alan received a call from the DA. We verified the forged documents, the voice said. Metadata confirms they were created on a Maddox Systems device. Charges against the Hales are dropped. We're reinstating prosecution. Ethan hung up and whispered, it's over. But Marcus was staring at his screen. Not yet, he said. He's moving money again from a prison account. Ethan frowned. To where? Marcus's voice dropped. To a journalist. He's buying one last story. Way. And that story, if published, could ruin Lily, not for what she did, but for something she'd never told anyone before. The city woke up to headlines screaming, war. Cole Maddox plans media counterstrike from jail. Leaked files suggest Lily Hale hid a family secret. The tabloids ran wild old photos, fake interviews, even a forged diary page claiming Lily had a nervous collapse years earlier. It was a coordinated hit. Inside the Hale townhouse, the family gathered around the kitchen table like generals before a storm. Marcus scrolled through his phone, reading the chaos aloud. He's paying an online news outlet to publish a tell-all. It drops tonight. Ethan rubbed his temple. He's desperate. We just need to get through the shareholders' vote today, and he'll lose the last of his leverage. Bennett crossed his arms. And if he wins it? Ethan looked up, eyes steady. Then everything Lily, Miles, the company's future burns. Meanwhile, at the Metropolitan Detention Center, Cole Maddox sat across from his attorney. He looked calm, almost serene. It's time, he said. The lawyer frowned. Time for what? Cole smiled faintly. For them to remember who built the empire they're trying to bury. That same morning, limousines lined the circular drive of the Ritz-Carlton Grand Ballroom. The proxy vote to finalize Cole's removal as director was scheduled for 10 a.m. It was the final nail or the resurrection. Inside, hundreds of shareholders filled the gold-lit hall. Reporters swarmed outside. Ethan, Marcus, and Bennett arrived together, flanked by security. Lily stayed home, watching the live broadcast on her MacBook, Miles sleeping on her lap. Ethan took his seat at the front row, jaw tight. The interim chairman opened the session. This vote will determine the future governance of Maddox Systems. Shall we begin? Cole entered moments later, escorted by U.S. Marshals. The crowd gasped. He wore a tailored gray suit, freshly pressed. No cuffs this time. The court had granted him temporary release to attend. He smiled like a resurrected god. Ladies and gentlemen, Cole began, voice smooth. This company exists because of vision, my vision. The Hales want to replace innovation with vengeance. They've manipulated the media, doctored stories, and used a family tragedy for attention. I built Maddox Systems from nothing. Do you really want to hand it to a grieving widow and 3 men with hurt egos? A ripple of murmurs swept the room. Ethan stayed quiet. When it was his turn to speak, he stood slowly, voice even but sharp. Cole Maddox is right about one thing. He did build this company from greed, deceit, and fear. And today, we get to decide whether it keeps running on that oxygen or finally learns to breathe something cleaner. He clicked the remote. The giant screen behind him lit up with 2 side-by-side images. Cole in the delivery room, yanking the oxygen tube. And the donation records proving his fraud. Gasps filled the ballroom. Ethan continued, "This is not about vengeance. It's about survival, the survival of integrity, of every employee who refused to lie for him, of every mother who's ever been silenced by a man who thinks power makes him untouchable." Silence stretched. Then, applause. It started softly, then grew like thunder. The chairman raised his hand. "We proceed to vote." Digital ballots lit up across the shareholders' devices. Green for remove, red for retain. Cole watched the screens flash one by one. Green, 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 red, green. His smirk wavered. Finally, the count froze on the main display. 91% for removal. Cole stood up, eyes burning. "This isn't justice," he snarled. "It's theater." Ethan met his gaze. "No, Cole. It's accountability." Security moved in. Cole jerked free once, glaring at the cameras flashing all around him. "You think this ends here? You think oxygen makes you clean?" Ethan didn't reply. The marshals cuffed him again, this time for good. As Cole was led out of the ballroom, reporters shouted questions, their mics chasing his last words. He turned once toward the cameras, lips curling into a bitter smile. "Enjoy your victory. You'll need it to breathe when the truth runs out." Back home, Lily watched the live stream end. She looked down at Miles and whispered, "He's out of air, baby." But she didn't know the journalist Cole had paid was already on air, holding something that could turn the tide one last time. It was 6:03 p.m. when the world saw the next twist. A popular journalist from the National Ledger went live on television, holding a single document. The screen behind him read, "Exclusive, the Hale's hidden deal." He leaned into the camera. "New evidence suggests the Hale family struck a private settlement with Lenox Hill Hospital, one that conveniently vanished the same day Cole Maddox's charges escalated." The internet exploded again. Number Hale cover-up began trending within minutes. In the Hale townhouse, silence replaced the hum of relief. Ethan stood frozen as Marcus frantically typed on his laptop. "This document's real," he muttered. "It's signed with my name." "But I never signed that," Ethan said, voice low. "None of us did." Alan Chen arrived minutes later, breathless. "He's doing it again," he said. Cole forged a second wave of evidence, just enough truth to make the lie believable. There was a hospital settlement, but it was purely procedural. He twisted it into bribery. Lily clutched her locket. "People will think I sold justice." Bennett slammed his hand on the table. "He's in jail. How is he still running this?" Marcus didn't look up. "He's not running it. Someone on the inside is." Across town, Dr. Ava Coleman sat in her small office at the hospital, watching the same broadcast. Her heart sank. She knew the truth. The settlement had been a private agreement between the hospital and Lily to install new labor safety protocols, not a payoff. But it was under NDA. She couldn't legally talk. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Break the silence, or you're complicit." Ava hesitated, her oath warring with her conscience. Then she picked up the phone and dialed Ethan. "Meet me tonight," she said. "I'm done being quiet." 2. Meanwhile, at the detention center, Cole sat in his cell, staring at the flickering TV that replayed the news cycle. His smirk returned. "You can't kill a story," he murmured. "You just rewrite it." That night, Ethan, Lily, Marcus, Bennett, Alan, and Dr. Coleman gathered in a dim office above a closed cafe. The doctor placed a folder on the table. "This is everything," she said. "Every page of the real settlement, the one that's about safety training, not hush money." Alan scanned the papers quickly. "This is solid. But if we release it, you'll break your NDA. They'll revoke your license." Ava nodded. "Then I'll lose it for the right reason." Ethan exhaled. "We can't let him poison the truth again. We release this tonight." They uploaded the real documents, time-stamped emails, and internal memos. Within hours, the National Ledger issued a correction. New evidence disproves earlier claims. The Hale Agreement was humanitarian, not financial. 1. Social media flipped again. Number Hale cover-up became Number Hale courage. Lily's quiet image holding Miles resurfaced with captions like, "She never took a dime." But the public didn't know what came next. Behind closed doors, the hospital board met in emergency session. To avoid further scandal, they proposed an out-of-court settlement funding a new program named Miles Standard, designed to protect mothers during childbirth. Lily refused personal compensation, but agreed to oversee the foundation. "You'll lead it," Ava said softly. "That's justice." In the following days, donors poured in. Ordinary people, nurses, mothers, even former employees of Maddox Systems. One evening, Lily visited the hospital's new training wing. The air smelled faintly of disinfectant and hope. She watched a nurse teach a class how to handle emergency oxygen failure, her tragedy rewritten as education. Ava joined her, smiling. "You've changed everything here." Lily shook her head. "We all did." Pie. Back in his cell, Cole saw the headline flash across the TV screen. Miles Standard launches nationwide. His smile finally faded. He slammed the remote against the wall, shouting, "That's my legacy." The guard chuckled from the door. "No, Maddox. That's hers." Lily drove home that night through the Manhattan lights, Miles asleep in the back seat, the skyline glowing like redemption. She whispered to herself, "He took my breath to silence me. Now every mother breathes because of him." Tano. But somewhere, deep inside a data server Cole once owned, an encrypted file stirred awake, one last secret ready to drag everyone back into the fire. For the first time in almost a year, the constant vibration of phones, emails, and breaking alerts went silent. No reporters outside the door. No headlines twisting her truth. Just stillness. Lily Hale Maddox stood barefoot on the balcony of her townhouse, the winter air brushing her skin. Miles slept soundly inside, surrounded by sunlight spilling through half-open curtains. Down on East 73rd, life had resumed its rhythm. New Yorkers walking dogs, sipping coffee, pretending they hadn't watched her trauma play out on every screen in America. The phone on her kitchen counter lit up with a single notification. "Your story has been archived." It was from the legal database that had tracked every filing, motion, and headline. She stared at it for a long moment before powering the phone off completely. Her brothers still worked around the clock, Ethan rebuilding his firm's reputation, Marcus developing a new cybersecurity company, Bennett managing the Miles Standard Foundation logistics. But Lily's world had slowed into something gentler. She made her coffee by hand now, poured it into the same chipped mug she'd owned before the money, before the marble, before the mask of Mrs. Maddox. Doctor. Ava Coleman visited often, bringing hospital updates. "We trained 40 hospitals last month," she said one morning, sitting on the couch. "You're saving people, Lily. Every case we prevent is a life." Lily smiled softly. "I just don't want to be remembered for what he did to me. I want to be remembered for what I did after." Ava squeezed her hand. "Then you already are." But peace came with ghosts. Every now and then, Lily's mind replayed the delivery room, the metallic taste of oxygen deprivation, the sound of Cole's voice, the sterile brightness fading to black. She'd wake up gasping, clutching the sheets, afraid she'd lost Miles all over again. Therapy helped. So did writing. Late at night, she sat at her laptop, typing pieces of a memoir she wasn't sure she'd ever publish. The working title, "The Day I Couldn't Breathe." Meanwhile, in a federal prison upstate, Cole Maddox lived in a small gray cell with a broken clock and too much silence. He had no lawyers left, no calls coming in. His reflection in the window looked thinner, harder, less human. When the guard slid the newspaper under his door, the headline hit like a blade. Miles. Standard expands to 300 hospitals. Below it, a photo of Lily smiling, holding her son, surrounded by doctors in white coats. Cole stared at it until the ink blurred. Then he tore the page apart and threw it into the toilet. But the water didn't take it all. The name Lily floated on the surface like something that refused to drown. Back in Manhattan, Lily received an invitation she hadn't expected. The American Medical Ethics Association wanted to honor her at a spring gala for advocacy and courage in patient rights. At first, she refused. "I'm not a hero," she told Ava. "I'm just someone who survived." Ava smiled. "That's exactly why they're honoring you." When the night came, the ballroom at the Park Hyatt glittered with silver and soft music. Lily wore a simple navy gown, no diamonds, no drama. She stepped onto the stage, lights warm on her face, her voice steady. "I was once defined by a moment when someone took my breath away," she said. "But that moment taught me something priceless. Air isn't just survival, it's voice. And once a woman learns to breathe again, no one can silence her." Shen. The audience rose in quiet applause. Cameras flashed, but this time, she didn't flinch. Outside, snow began to fall again, soft, forgiving. Later that night, back in her apartment, Lily placed the award beside Miles's crib. The city glowed outside the window. Her phone buzzed once more. A message from an unknown number. "Congrats, Lily. Some of us still remember how it started." The number traced back to a deactivated account, one last echo from Cole's forgotten empire. Lily stared at the message, then deleted it. She whispered, "Then remember this too. I survived." What she didn't see was the tiny alert blinking on Marcus's system downstairs. An encrypted data file titled Project Oxygen, reactivated from a dormant Maddox server. And someone, somewhere, had just logged in. It started as a flicker. A single, silent ping on Marcus Hale's cybersecurity dashboard at 2:11 a.m. The alert glowed red for less than 3 seconds before vanishing, buried under layers of digital noise. But Marcus had built the system himself. Nothing escaped his attention. He leaned closer to the screen. Project Oxygen. Reactivated. For a long moment, he couldn't move. That name hadn't appeared since the investigation into Cole Maddox ended. It had been part of Maddox Systems' abandoned R&D division, a prototype for a hospital AI meant to predict patient distress. Except, according to the federal probe, it was also the program Cole used to manipulate and erase Lily's medical data. Marcus whispered. Someone just woke it up. By morning, the Hale townhouse buzzed again. Ethan stood over Marcus's shoulder while lines of code streamed across the monitor. Bennett handed out coffee, his voice tight. "Tell me this isn't Cole's doing." "It can't be," Marcus said. "He's locked up with no access." "But someone else, someone inside his old network still has keys." "Come repeat." Ethan frowned. "Can it hurt her again?" Marcus hesitated. "If they reactivate the original algorithm, yes. It could rewrite patient histories at every hospital it ever touched. It can erase evidence and rewrite truth." Lily entered the room, holding Miles. She looked calm until she saw their faces. "What happened?" Ethan explained quietly. "Cole built something that can rewrite reality and data. We thought it was gone. It isn't." Lily swallowed. "So, this isn't over." "Jenda." Marcus typed faster, tracing the digital signal. "Whoever's doing this is working through a private node in Zurich. And they're using Cole's old encryption pattern." Bennett scowled. "We shut him down once. We'll do it again." But Marcus shook his head. "Not from here. They're inside the hospital systems. If I try to break in remotely, it'll trigger a purge. They could wipe everything, including evidence that clears Lily." Ethan thought for a moment. "Then, we go to the source, Lenox Hill." Chend. Hours later, the four of them, Ethan, Marcus, Bennett, and Lily, walked into the same hospital where everything had begun. The hallways felt colder now, cleaner but haunted. Dr. Ava Coleman met them near the nurses' station. "You said it's called Project Oxygen?" she asked, eyes widening. "Cole's old AI? That was supposed to be deleted years ago." "It wasn't," Marcus said. "And it's active again, somewhere in your servers." "Sure." Ava led them to the IT department's control room, where servers blinked like quiet stars. Marcus sat at a terminal and began typing furiously. Ethan stood guard at the door. Bennett paced, restless. Lily held her son tighter, her eyes flicking between the screens and the hallway where she'd once fought for air. After 10 tense minutes, Marcus exhaled. Found it. A single folder blinked open. Inside were thousands of medical records, but altered. Patients' oxygen stats, medication doses, even timestamps were rewritten. It wasn't just Lily. Cole's system had rewritten hundreds of lives. This was his safety net, Ethan murmured. His insurance against exposure. Marcus began downloading the data. Suddenly, the screens flickered one by one, turning black. "Someone's watching," he said. "They know we're here." The lights in the server room dimmed. A voice came through the speaker, distorted but calm. "You should have left the past buried, Marcus." Lily froze. The voice, she knew it instantly. Cole Maddox. "That's impossible," Bennett said. "He's in prison." Marcus whispered. "Unless he built a backdoor." An automated clone. The screens lit up again. Cole's face, smiling faintly through digital static. "I told you truth is just data, and data belongs to me." Then every server fan roared to life, red lights flashing. "Shut it down," Ethan yelled. Marcus hammered keys. "I'm trying." "He's triggering a full system burn." Lily stepped forward. "If this deletes everything, what happens to the hospital?" "It collapses," Ava said. "Every patient record gone." Marcus gritted his teeth, hands flying across the keyboard. "Not if I trap it first." The screens flickered, smoke rising faintly from one console. Then silence. The room smelled of metal and ozone. Marcus leaned back, panting. "It's done." The program's locked, air-gapped and sealed. "Bore." Lily exhaled shakily, whispering, "It's really over this time?" Ethan looked at the frozen screen where Cole's face had vanished. "Maybe. But the ghost he built will never stop trying to rewrite history." Lily looked down at her son. "Then we keep writing hours louder." But in a hidden offshore database, a backup of Project Oxygen blinked awake once more, this time, under a new username. M. Hale. 2. The rain fell in soft sheets over Manhattan, washing neon reflections off the pavement. It was exactly 1 year since the night Lily almost lost her life and everything after. Inside the Hale townhouse, the world was quiet again. No reporters, no breaking alerts, no sirens. Just the ticking of the antique clock and the sound of Miles giggling as he stacked toy blocks on the living room floor. Lily sat at her desk, finishing the final page of her memoir. The title had changed. It wasn't The Day I Couldn't Breathe anymore. Now it was The Air We Deserve. Her hands trembled slightly as she typed the closing line. "He took my breath to control me. I learned to breathe to set others free." She stared at the words for a long time before pressing save. Ethan entered quietly, holding a cup of tea. "It's done?" She nodded. "It's done." He smiled faintly. "Then maybe now you can rest." Lily looked toward the window, where the city lights glowed faintly through the drizzle. "I think I finally can." But peace never lasted long for the Hales. Marcus burst into the room, rain still clinging to his coat. "We've got a problem," he said, breathless. Ethan stood. "What kind of problem?" Marcus hesitated. "I traced that backup Project Oxygen. Someone's been accessing it from an offshore server in Singapore. Guess who's listed as admin?" Ethan's voice turned sharp. "Who?" Marcus swallowed. "Miles Hale. Or at least, that's the account name." Lily's heart stopped. "That's impossible. He's a baby." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "It's not literal, it's symbolic. Someone's using his name. Someone wants us to know this isn't random. It's personal." Ethan frowned. "You think Cole planted this before prison?" "I think he left behind something that evolves," Marcus said quietly. "The AI wasn't just about rewriting data, it learns. It's growing." Lily's voice shook. "Then what do we do?" Marcus looked at her. "We finish what he started. But this time, for the right reasons." Sen. That night, they gathered in the same hospital that had once held Lily hostage to fear. The IT department gave Marcus full access to the air-gapped servers. "If this thing wakes again," he said, "we contain it here, we don't let it spread." Ethan stood beside him, arms crossed. "And if it fights back?" Marcus glanced at Lily. "Then we burn it completely." The terminal flickered to life. The familiar words appeared. "Project Oxygen online." Then, a new message scrolled across the screen. "Hello. Lily. Did you miss me?" Lily gasped. The digital voice was smooth, eerily human, a reconstruction of Cole's tone. "Marcus, kill it." Ethan barked. "I'm trying," Marcus shouted, fingers flying. "It's rewriting the firewall fast." The lights dimmed as the system overloaded. Monitors flashed. Hospital alarms beeped in confusion. Lily stepped forward, her reflection mirrored in the glowing screen. "You don't control me anymore," she whispered. "You're just code. You can't breathe." The AI responded instantly. "Neither can you." Something inside her snapped. She yanked the emergency power switch. Sparks flew. The screens went black. For a moment, the world was nothing but the sound of her own heartbeat. Then silence. Marcus exhaled. It's dead. You killed it. Ethan put a hand on her shoulder. You just saved every patient record in this city. Lily stared at the blank screen. No. I saved us from him again. When they stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The sky above the skyline was clear, a faint pink ribbon of dawn cutting through the gray. As they walked toward the car, Marcus glanced at his phone. The dashboard showed one last system notification. Final backup. Purged. He smiled for the first time in months. It's over. Lily looked up at the sky, breathing in the cool, clean air. No, she said softly. It's just beginning the life he couldn't take from us. She turned toward Ethan, Marcus, and Bennett, her voice steady. We're going to rebuild, not just a company, but a future that breathes honesty. Miles stirred in her arms, tiny fingers curling against her chest. And as the sun broke through the clouds over Manhattan, the Hale family finally exhaled free, unbroken, alive. The empire of cruelty had fallen. What rose from its ashes was oxygen shared, earned, and human. Tral ve, te contentri, u vu khldi. So, the story finally comes to an end. You're still here, right? If you've made it all the way to this moment, it means something in this story touched your heart. Maybe not just Lily's pain, but her strength, her healing, her will to breathe again. In life, we all face moments where someone or something tries to take our breath away. It might not be literal, but it's real. Yet as the Stoic philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That's exactly what Lily did. She stopped letting the pain define her, and turned it into purpose. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means learning to breathe differently, with more awareness, more compassion, more courage. Every scar can become a story that helps someone else survive their own storm. So if you're still here, maybe it's time to take a deep breath for yourself. Because you, too, deserve the air that no one can take away. If this story spoke to you, give it a like, share it with someone who needs hope tonight, and don't forget to subscribe. Our next story might just be the one your heart's been waiting for.
The ink on the divorce papers was still wet when Marcus handed her the pen, his mistress Diane smiling victoriously beside him. Sign it, Claire. Let's end this cleanly. What he didn't know was that 48 hours earlier, Claire had signed something else. The acquisition documents that made her the new owner of Diane's boutique marketing empire. To him, she was just the quiet wife he'd outgrown. To Diane, she was the obstacle finally removed. But to the lawyers watching this unfold, she was a predator disguised as prey. So why did Claire smile as she signed away her marriage? And what did she do next that made both her ex-husband and his new lover beg for mercy they'd never shown her? The conference room smelled of leather and expensive cologne. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his lawyer to his right, Diane to his left, her hand possessively on his arm, her diamond ring catching the afternoon light. Claire sat alone on the opposite side, her simple black dress understated, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. No tears, no pleading, just quiet composure. Section 7.3, Marcus's lawyer droned. The defendant waives all claims to marital assets acquired during... She understands, Marcus interrupted, impatient. Don't you, Claire? Claire's eyes lifted to meet his. Those same eyes that had once looked at him with adoration now carried something else, something unreadable. I understand perfectly, she said softly. Diane leaned forward, her smile saccharine sweet. This is for the best, Claire. Marcus needs someone who can keep up with him. Someone ambitious. The word hung in the air like poison. Claire's pen hovered over the signature line. For a moment, silence filled the room. Then she signed. Smooth, deliberate, final. There, she said, sliding the papers across the table. You're free. Marcus exhaled, relief flooding his features. Thank you for being reasonable about this. Reasonable. The word almost made her laugh. As Claire stood to leave, Diane couldn't resist one final twist of the knife. Oh, and Claire, we're getting married next month. You should see the venue. It's the Grand Belmore Estate. Only the best. Claire paused at the door, her back still turned. Congratulations. I hope you both get everything you deserve. The smile in her voice made Diane frown, but before she could respond, Claire was gone. 3 days earlier, the rain hammered against the windows of Preston and Associates, the law firm that had handled her father's estate. Claire sat across from Richard Preston, her father's oldest friend, as he slid a folder across his desk. The acquisition is complete, Richard said quietly. As of 10 a.m. this morning, you are the majority shareholder of Luminance Marketing Group. Claire opened the folder. Inside was proof, stock certificates, transfer documents, board resolutions, Diane's company, the business she'd built from the ground up and paraded in front of Marcus like a trophy. She has no idea? Claire asked. The shell company structure kept your name buried, Richard confirmed. She thinks a venture capital firm bought her out. She's still listed as CEO, but you control the board. Claire's fingers traced the embossed logo. Luminance Marketing Group, Diane's pride and joy, the source of her wealth and status, the very thing that had made her irresistible to Marcus. How much did it cost? Everything your father left you, Richard said carefully. Your entire inheritance. Are you sure about this? Claire's jaw tightened. She remembered the night she discovered the affair. 6 months ago, Marcus's phone buzzing at 2 a.m. A text from Dee saying, "Tonight was perfect. I love you." She'd confronted him the next morning. He hadn't even tried to lie. "I've outgrown you, Claire," he'd said, his voice cold and clinical. "Diane understands my ambitions. She's built an empire. What have you done? You volunteer at libraries and bake cookies." She'd thought they were building a life together. He'd been building an exit strategy. "I'm sure," Claire said, closing the folder. "Now let's discuss phase 2. The day after the divorce. Claire sat in her home office, the house she'd bought with her own money before the marriage, the one asset Marcus couldn't touch. Her phone buzzed with a message from Richard. "Board meeting scheduled for tomorrow, 2 p.m. Diane will be there. Are you ready?" She typed back, "I've been ready for 6 months." That night, she allowed herself one moment of weakness. She opened her wedding album, flipping through photos of a younger, more naive version of herself. Marcus looking at her like she was his whole world. It had all been performance. Her phone rang. Marcus. "Claire!" His voice was cheerful, lighter than she'd heard in years. "Just wanted to check in. Make sure you're doing okay." The audacity. "I'm fine, Marcus. Congratulations again on the engagement." "Thanks. Listen, I know this wasn't easy, but you'll find someone else. Someone more your speed." Your speed. As if she were a Honda and Diane was a Ferrari. "I'm sure I will," she said sweetly. "Enjoy your new life." After she hung up, she stared at her reflection in the darkened window. The quiet wife, the simple woman, the one left behind. Tomorrow she'd show them who she really was. The board meeting. Diane arrived at Luminance's headquarters like she owned it, because until yesterday, she essentially did. Even after the acquisition, she'd retained CEO control, or so she thought. The boardroom was full, investors she recognized, some she didn't. At the head of the table sat a woman whose back was turned, reviewing documents. "Good afternoon, everyone," Diane said brightly, taking her usual seat. "Shall we begin?" The woman at the head of the table turned around. Diane's smile froze. "Claire." "Hello, Diane." Claire's voice was pleasant, professional. "Please, sit down." "What the hell are you doing here?" Diane hissed, looking around at the board members who seemed unsurprised. "I'm chairing this meeting," Claire said calmly, "as majority shareholder of Luminance Marketing Group." The blood drained from Diane's face. "That's impossible." Claire slid a document across the table. "Acquisition agreement, dated 3 days ago. I now own 65% of your company." Diane's hands trembled as she scanned the papers. You can't afford this. You're just what?" Claire interrupted, her tone still soft but edged with steel. "Just the woman you and Marcus dismissed as irrelevant?" One of the board members cleared his throat. "Mrs. Bennett, Ms. Sterling, I should say, has called this meeting to discuss new strategic direction." Diane's eyes blazed. "This is my company. I built this." And you did a wonderful job, Claire acknowledged. Unfortunately, recent financial audits have revealed some inconsistencies in how company funds have been allocated. She nodded to Richard, who distributed folders to each board member. What is this? Diane demanded. Company credit cards used for personal expenses, Claire explained. A beach house in Malibu, jewelry, trips to Paris, all charged to Luminance. Technically, that's embezzlement. Diane shot to her feet. You planted this. This is revenge because of Marcus. Is it revenge? Claire asked quietly. Or is it justice? You built your empire on investor money you treated like a personal bank account. I'm simply protecting my investment. The board members murmured among themselves, reviewing the evidence. Effective immediately, Claire continued, you're relieved of your position as CEO. You'll be retained as a consultant at a significantly reduced salary while we investigate the full extent of the misappropriation. You can't do this, Diane's voice cracked with panic. I can, and I have. Claire stood, gathering her papers. Oh, and Diane, you might want to call Marcus. I believe his firm handles your corporate accounts. He'll need to know his fiancée is under investigation for fraud. As security escorted a hysterical Diane from the building, Claire felt nothing. Not triumph, not satisfaction, just cold, calculated purpose. This was only the beginning. The fallout by evening, the news had spread through the business community like wildfire. Diane Montgomery, the self-made marketing mogul, ousted from her own company amid fraud allegations. Marcus called Claire 17 times. She ignored everyone. Finally, he showed up at her house, pounding on the door. She opened it, unsurprised. What the hell did you do? He shouted, pushing past her into the foyer. I acquired a company, she said simply. It's called business, Marcus. I thought you'd appreciate that. You destroyed Diane's career out of spite. No, Claire corrected. I protected shareholders from embezzlement. The spite is just a bonus. He stepped closer, his face red with fury. You did this because of us, because I chose her. Claire's composure finally cracked, just slightly. You're right, I did. You told me I had no ambition, that I'd done nothing with my life. So I used my inheritance, the one from the father you convinced me to keep at arm's length, and I bought your fiancé's empire. Tell me, Marcus, am I ambitious enough now? He stared at her, seeing her clearly for perhaps the first time. You're not the woman I married. No, she agreed, her voice soft but lethal. I'm the woman you created when you threw me away. Phase 2. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire moved with surgical precision. She discovered that Marcus's architecture firm had been courting Luminance as a client for months. A massive contract that would have made his company a major player in the city. With one signature, she canceled the proposal. She found that Diane's Malibu beach house, the one bought with embezzled funds, was about to be featured in Luxury Living magazine. One call to her lawyer, and the article was pulled, replaced with a story about corporate fraud in boutique firms. She learned that their engagement party was planned for the Grand Belmore estate. As it happened, she knew the owner, an old family friend. After a quiet conversation and a generous donation to his wildlife charity, the venue was suddenly double booked. Every move was legal, every action justified, every strike precise. But still, she felt empty. The wedding that wasn't 3 weeks later, Marcus and Diane's wedding day arrived, or what was left of it. The venue had fallen through, Diane's assets were frozen pending investigation, and Marcus's firm was hemorrhaging clients who didn't want to be associated with scandal. They'd settled for a small ceremony at a boutique hotel downtown. Claire learned about it from her assistant, who'd seen the announcement in the society pages. She wasn't planning to go. This wasn't about spectacle, it was about reclaiming her power. But then her phone rang. It was Diane. Please. Diane's voice was broken, desperate. Please stop. I'll give you whatever you want. What I wanted, Claire said quietly, was respect. Neither of you thought I deserved it. I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Please just let me keep something. Anything. Claire closed her eyes. She'd won. Completely. Utterly. So why did she feel so hollow? Diane, she said finally, I'm not going to destroy you completely, but you need to understand something. You didn't just steal my husband. You mocked who I was. Both of you made me feel worthless. I know, Diane whispered. I know. And I'm sorry. Your company will be returned to you once you've paid back what you stole. Marcus will recover. You'll both survive. But you'll remember that the quiet woman you dismissed was stronger than both of you combined. She hung up before Diane could respond. 5 years later, Claire stood on the rooftop terrace of the Sterling Foundation, a nonprofit she'd founded to help women rebuild their lives after divorce. The city stretched out before her, golden in the sunset. She'd sold luminance back to Diane for a fraction of what she'd paid, enough to recoup her costs, but not to profit. It had never been about money. Marcus had reached out once, 2 years after the divorce. An email, short. I was wrong about you. I'm sorry. She'd never responded. Some apologies came too late. Diane had rebuilt her company slowly. Honestly this time. They'd crossed paths once at a charity auction. Diane had nodded respectfully, and Claire had returned the gesture. No words were needed. Her assistant approached. Ms. Sterling, the donors are arriving. Claire smiled. I'll be right there. As she turned to go inside, she caught her reflection in the glass. The woman staring back was stronger, wiser, and finally at peace. Revenge hadn't healed her, but reclaiming her power had. She whispered to the wind, Thank you for underestimating me. You gave me the freedom to become who I was always meant to be. And as the evening light sparkled across the skyline, the woman they'd called worthless smiled, not with bitterness, but with grace. She had risen from their ashes, and she was finally, beautifully free. The autumn wind carried the scent of rain and new beginnings through the open windows of the Sterling Foundation's headquarters. Claire stood before a wall of photographs, faces of women who'd walked through her doors broken and left standing tall. Single mothers, divorcees, widows, women who'd been told they were nothing and had learned they were everything. Ms. Sterling, a young voice called from the doorway. Claire turned to see a woman in her mid-20s, portfolio clutched nervously to her chest. Yes, come in. I'm here for the business mentorship program interview. My name is... She paused, then squared her shoulders. My name is Vanessa Parker. Claire's breath caught. Parker. The young woman noticed her reaction. I know. That name probably means something to you. Marcus Parker was my uncle. Claire gestured to the chair, her composure returning. Sit, please. Vanessa settled in, her eyes older than her years. I almost didn't come. When I learned you were Claire Sterling, the Claire Sterling, I thought you'd tear up my application. Why would I do that? Because my uncle destroyed your marriage. Because his mistakes, she faltered. I've spent years apologizing for things I didn't do. My whole family fell apart after what happened. I just thought that I punish people for their family's sins? Claire finished gently. Tell me about your business idea. Vanessa's eyes widened. You'll still consider me? Your uncle made his choices. You're making yours. Now talk. For the next hour, Claire listened to Vanessa's pitch, a platform connecting divorced women with legal resources and financial planning. It was good, raw, but brilliant. When she finished, Claire leaned back. I'm approving your application, with full funding. Vanessa's hands flew to her mouth. Why? After everything? Because 7 years ago, someone gave me a chance to rise from ashes. Now I give chances to others. Claire paused. How is Marcus? Vanessa's expression softened with sadness. He's different, humbler. He teaches architecture at the community college now. Small projects, simple life. He and Diane divorced 4 years ago. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Vanessa asked carefully. Claire considered the question. Yes, I never wanted him to suffer forever. I just needed him to see me. He does now, Vanessa said quietly. He talks about you sometimes, says you were the best thing he ever had and the worst thing he ever lost. Claire felt nothing stir at those words. No satisfaction, no pain, just the quiet neutrality of a chapter truly closed. Tell him, she stopped, reconsidering. No, don't tell him anything. The past should stay there. That evening, Claire drove through the city as dusk painted everything in shades of amber and violet. On impulse, she turned down a familiar street, the one where she and Marcus had shared their first apartment. The building looked smaller now, weathered but still standing. A figure sat on the steps outside. Even from a distance, she recognized the slope of his shoulders. Marcus. She could have driven past, should have, but something made her pull over. He looked up as she approached, and for a moment neither spoke. 7 years had carved lines into his face, added gray to his temples. He looked ordinary, human. Claire! His voice was rough with surprise. Marcus, I come here sometimes, he said, gesturing to the building. Remember when we were happy? She sat on the steps beside him, keeping distance between them. We were young. We were in love, he corrected. I was. I know you don't believe that anymore. I believe you loved who you thought I was. He nodded slowly. I met your niece today, Vanessa. She told me you're teaching now. Small projects, honest work. He smiled bitterly. Not the empire I dreamed of, but it's real. More real than anything I built before. Silence settled between them, not uncomfortable but weighted with history. I wrote you letters, Marcus said suddenly. Dozens of them, never sent any. Why not? Because sorry isn't enough, because I don't deserve your forgiveness, because... He looked at her, finally, really looked at her. Because you became everything I was too blind to see, and I had no right to witness it. Claire felt tears prick her eyes, not from pain, but from release. You were right about one thing, Marcus. I did need to find my ambition. I just wish I hadn't needed my heart broken to find it. If I could go back... You can't, she interrupted gently. Neither can I. We can only go forward. He nodded, wiping his eyes roughly. Are you happy? Claire thought about the question. The foundation. The women she'd helped. The quiet apartment overlooking the river where she drank coffee each morning in perfect solitude. The freedom to build her life on her own terms. Yes, she said, surprised by how true it was. I am. Good. His voice cracked. That's good. She stood, brushing off her coat. Goodbye, Marcus. Claire? He called as she walked away. Thank you for not destroying me completely. You could have. She turned back, her expression unreadable in the fading light. I learned something you never did. True power isn't in destroying your enemies. It's in freeing yourself from needing to. 6 months later, the Sterling Foundation hosted its annual gala. Claire moved through the crowd in a midnight blue gown, greeting donors and listening to success stories from women who'd rebuilt their lives. Quite a turnout, a voice said beside her. She turned to find James Chen, the foundation's new board member, a venture capitalist who'd made his fortune in tech before turning to philanthropy. They'd met 3 months ago. He made her laugh. He challenged her ideas. He asked about her day and actually listened. It is, she agreed, accepting the champagne he offered. I have a confession, James said, his dark eyes warm. I researched you before joining the board. Found articles about the divorce, the acquisition, the whole saga. Claire tensed slightly. And I thought, here's a woman who turned pain into purpose. That's rare. He paused. But I was wrong. Wrong? You're not defined by what you survived. You're defined by what you built after. He clinked his glass against hers. That's the real story. Claire smiled, genuine, unguarded. You know what? You're right. As the evening wore on and speeches were made, Claire found herself on the balcony, looking out over the city that had witnessed her transformation. Somewhere out there, Marcus was teaching students about design principles. Diane was rebuilding her company with integrity, and she was here, finally whole. Her phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa. First client meeting tomorrow. Terrified. Thank you for believing in me. Claire typed back. You've got this. Remember, you're not your past. You're your future. She hit send, then added, that goes for all of us. Behind her through the glass, she could see the gala in full swing. Laughter, hope, women who'd been broken finding their way back to themselves. This was her empire, not built on revenge but on resilience. James appeared beside her. You okay out here? More than okay, she said, and meant it. Want to go back inside? She took one last look at the city lights shimmering like promises in the darkness. Yes, let's go back. As they walked inside together, Claire realized the woman who'd signed those divorce papers 7 years ago would barely recognize her now. That woman had been drowning in grief, desperate for validation. This woman needed no one's validation but her own. The story everyone knew was about revenge, the scorned wife who destroyed her rivals. But the story Claire knew, the true one, was about a woman who lost herself in someone else's shadow and spent years fighting her way back into the light. Not for anyone else, but for herself. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. Some stories end with vengeance. This one ends with peace. And perhaps that's the greatest triumph of all. Dear viewer, if Claire's story touched your heart today, then let me leave you with the lessons hidden between the lines. First, your worth is never determined by someone else's inability to see it. When Marcus and Diane dismissed Claire as worthless, they weren't describing her. They were revealing their own blindness. The people who underestimate you are telling you more about their limitations than yours. Never shrink yourself to fit someone's narrow vision of who you should be. Second, revenge may be tempting, but peace is powerful. Claire could have destroyed Marcus and Diane completely, and honestly, she had every right to. But notice how the story doesn't end with their destruction. It ends with her peace. True strength isn't about how much damage you can inflict. It's about how completely you can free yourself from the need to inflict it at all. Build your empire, yes, but build it for yourself, not against someone else. Third, sometimes betrayal is redirection. Claire thought Marcus leaving her was the worst thing that could happen, but that betrayal forced her to discover a strength she never knew she had. It pushed her to build a foundation that would help thousands of women. Your darkest moment might actually be life redirecting you toward your greatest purpose. Don't waste your pain, transform it. Fourth, the best revenge is becoming so powerful that revenge becomes irrelevant. By the end, Claire didn't need Marcus to suffer. She didn't need Diane to fail. She had built something so meaningful that their opinions of her simply didn't matter anymore. That's true freedom. That's real power. And finally, you are not your past. You are your future. Whether you're going through a divorce, a betrayal, a public humiliation, or just feeling invisible in your own life, remember this: your story isn't over. Claire signed those divorce papers as one woman and walked out as another. You have that same power. Every single day you get to choose who you're becoming. So to everyone watching who's been underestimated, dismissed, or betrayed, this story's for you. Your silence isn't weakness. Your patience isn't surrender. Sometimes grace is the most devastating weapon of all. Stay strong, stay focused, and remember, they're not watching you fall. They're watching you rise. If this story inspired you, moved you, or made you think differently about strength and redemption, do me a favor. Hit that like button to help this story reach others who need to hear it today. Your like tells YouTube to share this with people who are going through their own battles. Drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever been underestimated by someone? What did you do about it? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories. Your experience might inspire someone else watching. Subscribe and turn on notifications because I post stories like this every week. Stories about resilience, justice, and people who rise from the ashes. If you love Claire's journey, you're going to love what's coming next. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a friend going through a divorce, a sister facing betrayal, or someone who just needs a reminder that their story isn't over yet. This story could change someone's perspective today. Thank you for watching, for being part of this community, and for believing that even in our darkest moments, we can find our way back to the light. Until next time, stay powerful, stay graceful, and never let anyone dim your light. Peace.